And tell me where Newcastle are going, because from boardroom to dugout, Simon, is there anything secure about the future of this football club?
In terms of what? In terms of Mike Ashley's going to sell the football club, Steve Bruce is
Exactly.
going to stay.
What happens? What happens if they go down? What happens if they stay up? What happens?
Well, I don't think they'll go down. I never thought they'd go down. I thought Fulham had run their course, and I said it a couple of weeks ago, and it's proving to be so. You can never write anything off in this league. No. But I don't think Steve Bruce will be there next year. I think that they will stay in the division. I think if he's got anything about him, he'll want to go. And having done a job, whatever the view is that, and amongst a lot of vociferous Newcastle fans, it's not a particularly complimentary one. I think that they've got Ashley in control. Nothing will change at Newcastle United Football Club until Mike Ashley sells.
I mean, the Supporters Trust are trying to buy 1% shareholding stake in the club.
What's that going to achieve?
So, with the aim to, quote, stop terrible decisions of the owner Mike Ashley.
How does that work, Simon? Can 1% have an input?
No, of course not. Silly background noise. I mean, ultimately, what you're going to do, you're going to pay £3 million to get 1%, and you're going to have what? You're going to ask for a seat on the board, which you're not going to be given. You're going to have no influence because 1% gets you no influence whatsoever. So it's an exercise in silly semantics. The change
They can be
ownership,
heard at AGMs.
Well, they can be heard at AGMs, yes, that's fine, right? But what do you think that's going to make a difference to Mike Ashley? You think he hasn't heard it already? You think there's something that he hasn't heard already from the dissenting Newcastle fans about what they think of him? He will sell that football club when somebody is able to buy it from him, whether there's the legitimacy behind the last bid that had all the different peculiarities and nuances about it. And I was forever and a day reticent about Amanda because I think she talks a good game. And I think that Newcastle as a football club will be in the Premier League, but it will remain the same unless they get somebody in that's going to do precisely what Rafa Benitez did, which is spend his entire time briefing against the owner.
I don't think he's going to go down that line again, though. It's a poison chalice in many respects. If Mike Ashley's still in charge, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, people they have this vilification of Ashley, and some of it's entitled and some of it's not. And I don't support Newcastle, and I really don't have much of a dog in the fight to care either which way. But when a subject's brought up, we're not allowed to comment on it, because if we do comment on it, then you'll offend a certain section of the Newcastle fan base. But the key for us is I watched it on Saturday. I was pleased for them on one hand and displeased for another, because I can imagine a group of Newcastle fans would quite like their team to lose, because it will put Mike Ashley under pressure if they get relegated, force his hand, and perhaps get rid of Steve Bruce. But they will stay in the Premier League, and nothing will change at that football club until it's taken away from Mike. And then the next poor sod will pick up the cudgel and have the same challenges, unless they do it precisely what the Newcastle fans or sections of the vociferous minority want. They're a great football club, great fans, but sometimes some of their outlooks are not fundamentally right.
Do you think can I just ask you, because I don't know if you know him or not, I don't, and I've not met him, but do you think it's getting to a point where he might just take a little bit of a hit to get it gone to avoid all the grief? Yeah,
I don't think he cares in the slightest. I've known him for 15, 16, 17 years. He's got hide of a rhino. Right. He'll look at it. I don't think he wants to be there, but he's not giving it away. It's the price that he wants for it.
What is the price, do you think?
Well, the price is the price that he accepted in the summer, which was 275 million, I think, all in,
300,
and plus a few bits and bobs that were going to be dragon tags.
So I think whether they stay up, whether they go down, and I think that I agree with you, Simon. I think they'll stay up.
Yeah,
but I think that club changes in terms of personnel.
The players.
I mean, Ashley will give it another tilt, won't he?
Yeah, but he's got no choice. What's his choice? If someone's not going to come along, if he wants to give it away 50 million quid, there'll be a bunch of bias. Right? He's not going to give it away for 50 million quid. He wants whatever the Newcastle fans say, and I'm sure they've got a lot more information than I have. He wants what he thinks he's put in that football club. And if it is 300 million quid, he wants his money back. Right? And unless there's a queue of buyers, which there very rarely is. I mean, let's think about it. How many football clubs actually get bought when they're not in distress? If Newcastle stay in the Premier League, they're not in distress. The only distress is between the ownership and the fans. Right? So economically, they're not in distress.
Sure.
So when you see a football club change hands, it's when there's trouble. Mel Morris doesn't want to fund Derby anymore. It's got to be sold. Sunderland have troubles. XYZ Aston Villa have troubles. In comes an ownership model that buys it on the back of getting it for cheap. You're not going to get Newcastle cheap. He's not going to sell it cheap. You can shout.
It's a good buy for somebody, isn't it? Great club.
Well, it's a great buy in lots of ways, but it's a difficult buy in other ways.
Good buy if you've got hundreds of millions, isn't it?
Sure. Any football club is a great buy if you've got hundreds of millions of quid. If you want to run a football club without spending hundreds of millions of quid, Newcastle is a very difficult buy.